Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine, and I am so excited, for the lack of better terms, to react to this new Piers shit show of a debate. Like, the lineup is a nightmare blunt rotation, and I'm honestly kind of excited to react. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this, and let's get into it.
This weekend, Israel again.
Are we ready for this? I don't know if we are.
And found itself under attack. Iran fired more than 300 drones and missiles in a revenge attack for Israel's bombing of an Iranian diplomatic compound in Syria. After decades aspiring through proxies, assassinations and subterfuge, two titans of the Middle East are now on the brink of full warfare. The region and the world is suddenly a much more dangerous and precarious place.
Two titans of the Middle East. I guess that's one way to put it.
Israel says it will respond. How and when it does could be the difference between stability and a full regional war.
We appreciate the US standing alongside Israel, as well as the support of Britain, France, and many other countries. We have determined a clear principle. Whoever harms us, we will harm them.
I took some flack over the weekend for immediately urging Israel to show restraint. In fact, one of the people who criticised me most vociferously will be on my panel debating exactly that point in a moment. Many people have argued that Israel is the only country on earth that's expected to endure this kind of attack and respond with restraint, with caution. But my response is to say that's exactly the point. The whole reason Israel is such a vital ally to the West is because...
Okay, first of all, let's throw out the fact that he just said Israel is such a vital ally to the West, because that proves that he's a raging Zionist, even though he tries to placate all different sides, which has never worked well for him. But going beyond that, I just really want to highlight that Iran retaliated back because Israel directly hit their embassy in Damascus and killed 7 people, 3 of which were high-ranking commanders in the IRGC. So as much as I don't like the Iranian government, Iran did have a right to defend itself. I don't care how mad that makes you. Like, it's a fact. If you bomb any embassy, which is supposed to be a safe space for a country to have in different countries, you're gonna get murked. I don't make up the rules, okay? You can't keep poking the bear and expect the bear to just stare at you. It is what it is.
Because it's supposed to be the adult in the room, a Western-facing, democratic, socially liberal bulwark in a neighborhood of trigger-happy fanatics. If you don't want the United States to be dragged into another Middle Eastern bloodbath, you should agree that this is the time for its key ally in the region to prove its commitment to peace. And let's face it, Iran is already a big loser here. Yes, many Israelis would have died if this attack had been successful, but it wasn't. It was an abject failure. 99% of the drones and missiles were swatted from the sky. Western and Middle Eastern...
Oh my God, Piers is so stupid. The point of that attack that Iran made into Israel was not to kill people. It was a warning. They gave Israel ample time to prepare. They knew when it was coming. They strategically hit targets where people were not in dense populations. This was not aimed at starting a war. This was aimed as a warning sign, which, by the way, it's estimated that Israel spent $1 billion defending itself in that one day. They spent $1 billion. So it depends on how you look at it, whether it was successful or not. If you're just looking at human casualties, sure, it was unsuccessful. They threw all those missiles, nothing happened. But if you think about it, Iran is a very heavily sanctioned country. And for a sanctioned country to have missiles that can go from Iran all the way to Israel geographically, that's kind of insane. Like, they pretty much showed that they do have the strength to defend themselves. That was the point, and they proved it. With that being said, I still don't like the Iranian government. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying, when you look at this from a geopolitical standpoint, it's tit for tat. It's equal now. In my opinion, it's not even equal, because 7 Iranian people died. No one died on the Israeli side. You get what I mean?
And allies, including Jordan and Saudi Arabia, have rallied behind Israel after months of eroding their trust and patience with the increasingly brutal assault on Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu has reclaimed at least a little of his reputation for security, which was dealt a terrible permanent blow by October the 7th. But for once, I agree with President Biden. Israel needs to take the win, because it was a win. These missiles did not land and cause damage. The Middle East is simmering to the boil. Hundreds of people are dying in Gaza every day as Israeli hostages remain captives of Hamas. It's time to turn the temperature down, not pour fuel onto the fire. In a few minutes, I'll be debating this with the Young Turks founder, Cenk, former Congressman Joe Walsh, and Israeli journalist Emily Schrader. But first, I'm joined by the exiled Crown Prince of Iran. First of all, if I may get your reaction to the attack by Iran directly on Israel soil?
Well, these are signs of a regime that is becoming more and more desperate and vulnerable. At the same time, it's launching an attack against Israel. It has been launching an attack at home on Iranian women and trying to, again, exercise its repression at home. This is going to be an ongoing problem, and I think ultimately the world needs to realize that the root cause of many problems we see in the area, and not just this one instance, but in general, is the regime's nature and behavior. It has not only affected Iranians or Israelis, it has also affected Syrians, Iraqis, Lebanese, and other immediate neighbors in the region.
Wait, is he just going to ignore the embassy hit? Are we just not going to talk about that?
Iran has operated through proxies for a number of years, obviously. This is the first time they've directly attacked Israel in this manner. How significant is this escalation?
Despite launching so many different missiles and drones, none of them actually reached targets. So was it really an exercise for purposes of domestic consumption, or was it actually the intent to escalate? I think this time Khamenei took a huge gamble, assuming that probably there will be a lot of pressure to keep the Israelis from retaliating. But then again, I think we should look beyond the tit-for-tat argument. I think the world needs to now really scratch their head and say, look, diplomacy has failed. Our expectation of behavior change from this regime over decades is pointless. The time has come to look for an ultimate solution to the problem. If we indeed want to avoid escalation, you have to put an end to this regime, which is the ask of the Iranian people in the first place. But the world needs to seriously consider that the only solution and alternative is regime change in Iran.
Listen, I don't agree with the Iranian government, but why does the Iranian government have to do a regime change in order for there to be peace in the Middle East? This all was instigated by the Israeli government. Iran would have not hit back if it wasn't for the embassy strike. And that's why he's like, I don't want to do a tit for tat argument here, because he knows when you do the tit for tat argument, this whole entire logic he's spitting goes out the window. And listen, I would love for there to be a regime change in Iran. I was arrested by the morality police. I lived in Iran for a year. It was the worst year of my life, hands down. I'm not a supporter of the regime whatsoever. But at the end of the day, I think we need to understand who is the country that started everything from decades ago. It's Israel. It's Israel and Western allies, influences, whatever. And the fact that he just blamed it all on Iran, it's a bit unfair. But you also have to look at it. This guy, if there is a regime change, he's going to try to go back and become the king. As if it's fucking archaic 1700s. But that's what he would love. For him to go back, take his little, minions that he's found here, then they can become America's stooges. You know what I mean?
But how does the world affect regime change in Iran?
Well, two things. Number one is to actually increase even more pressure on the regime economically by means of expanding the sanctions. I think it is time that the G7 and the European countries join the US in putting the IRGC on the terror list. This will further put pressure on the regime to target the regime's officials individually on their personal assets, to expel their diplomats or elements associated with the regime that roam freely in European and American cities. And actually implement further oil sanctions, which, by the way, were not properly implemented, which simply gave the regime more money, which, of course, it spent on its proxies, whether the Houthis or Hamas and what have you. That's on the external factor aspect. Parallel to this needs to be a policy of maximum support. That means support for the Iranian people in their struggle against this regime. And that could come in many forms. I think the most important one is to make sure that Iranians remain connected to the world, and therefore internet access is key. I've mentioned that many times before. Elon Musk with Starlink have done their part. I think we need more of that happening. There are means of perhaps making exceptions to some of the current limitations of the inability for Iranians to, let's say, send money back home, because as you know, under the current sanctions, it's impossible to transfer money. We are only limited to some digital currency. That could be at least an exception to the rule to make it easier for us to support families at home, especially our working force.
Okay, let me get this straight. You want more sanctions on Iran. You want everyone in the government to be named as terrorists. But then you want there to be an exception so that people can send money through Bitcoin and electronically into families in Iran. Let me tell you why this logic is complete ass. Right now in Gaza, it is impossible to send anyone money there. Even if you open up a GoFundMe for someone, you cannot send it to someone within Gaza. You have to send it to one of their family members that's either in Turkey, Egypt, whatever. With that being said, we fundraised money for Lama to evacuate. We fundraised about $90,000. There was no way on God's green earth that we were able to send that money to Lama and her family. Because if we did this, the only way that is possible where you can do that is through Bitcoin. And if any of us did send her thousands of dollars through Bitcoin and the US government decided to flag us for funding Hamas, that's federal prison for the rest of my life. So when he's like, you need to say everyone in the IRGC is a terrorist, you need to sanction everyone, but you also need to allow people to be able to send money there. You can't have your cake and eat it too. That's not how it works. I don't understand what kind of logic this is, because number one, you sanction a government, the people suffer. As much as I hate the Iranian government, that's just a fact. Number two, you're saying, oh, we need to do more internet access. My guy, Iran is the only country in the whole entire world that can flip a switch and turn off everyone's internet access, and they have no access to internet for months, which is exactly what they did 2 years ago during the Women Life Freedom Movement. You want Starlink to go save their ass? Unless you can come up with some sort of internet solution, that's also not a solution, which is why it pisses me off that so many people blindly in the Iranian community follow him, because if you actually listen to the fundamentals of what he's saying, it does not make any sense.
If they want to go on strike, not to remain completely.
Damn, it's only been 6 minutes and I'm already this triggered. I will use that word. I'm triggered. This is triggering me.
Impoverished and unable to actually do that. And there are many other elements. I know there are too many details to discuss in one short interview, but there are many ways to equal the playing field for the Iranians. And that could be a dual element of pressure from in the interior of the country as well as external pressure. This could be a recipe that could lead to a successful transition.
A lot of speculation about what Israel's response will be to this unprecedented missile strike. Do you think it would be a smart strategy for Israel to launch an attack directly into Iran, as some of the more right-wing members of the cabinet apparently want to do?
But I can tell you one thing. At the end of the day, I think that Bibi Netanyahu, Mohammed bin Salman, and many others in the region know that we cannot only remain focused on, again, what can happen or not, and whether or not this could escalate beyond. I think everybody in the region understands that so long as the regime and its nature is constantly creating havoc towards more extremism, more radicalism, more instability, more threats, we cannot contemplate any solution other than dealing only with the status quo. We need to start strategically thinking beyond the status quo. These are the kind of discussions I had recently, at least last year when I was in Israel, visiting that country. And what I've been talking about with foreign countries in Europe and the United States, whether legislators or in government, there has to be ultimately...
Let's go there. Let's talk about his little visit to Israel. So the Iranian people built a coalition with about 5 people who are very notable Iranian people. This man was one of them. And guess what? The whole entire group dismantled because this man decided to go to Israel and didn't want to tell anyone about his visit. That group was our only hope of actually having leaders that were going to lead a revolution and a regime change in Iran. He fucked it up because he decided to go to Israel and he didn't tell anyone. A couple of people in the group backed out and they were like, we don't agree with Israeli politics. We're backing out. We don't want a part of this. And the whole entire coalition disbanded. Yap, yap, yap. This is how Iran should be free. This is how Iran should do it. This is how people should do it. This is how, yeah. Yap, yap, yap. That's all you do. That's all you fucking do.
A fundamental shift in overall policy as they deal with the Islamic regime in Iran. And that would mean that rather than staying only focused on how do we respond, or what's proportional response, and what are the collateral elements, because we know people are suffering. We know Iranians are suffering, Israelis are suffering, Palestinians are suffering, but all because of this regime. So the only remedy ultimately, while we are looking at the immediate response, is a general shift in policy. That is the only way we can.
How are Palestinians suffering because of the Iranian regime? How? So once again, you can put the whole Iran is bad butter on all the toast. Are you going to make sense? No. Is it going to make sense? No. Is it going to be applicable to the conversation? No. But you thought you cooked. You know what I mean?
And get out of this mess and solve really a problem for the region in terms of stability and peace. And of course, beyond that, what could rectify what the regime from its beginning has derailed, which is peace and stability in our region.
Well, I'll go down to my panel to debate this, Cenk Uygur, Joe Walsh and Emily Schrader. Let me start with you, Joe Walsh, because you were giving me a bit of hammer on
Y'all didn't have the press on this debate show? It's kind of upsetting.
X, formerly Twitter, yesterday, because I tweeted in reaction to what had happened that I wanted Israel to show restraint, and I feared that Netanyahu wouldn't do that. Now, just to clarify what I meant, I didn't mean there should be no response. I just wanted that response not to be just going all guns blazing into Iran, because I genuinely fear that might accelerate this into a much more catastrophic situation. But you feel very strongly, don't you? I can tell that you believe Israel is always the one when it gets attacked that is urged to show restraint, and they shouldn't be told to do that.
Piers, really good to be with you. And I apologize if in my Twitter response to you, if I got personal. I apologize. I didn't mean it. My beef wasn't with what you said, that Israel should show restraint, because I actually agree with that. My beef was the timing of that tweet and so many others. Israel was under attack. The the alarms were going off in Jerusalem. Missiles were raining down on Israel. And it just didn't seem, Piers, like that was the proper time. I agree with the sentiment of what you said. I just didn't think it was the proper time until we knew, Piers, how many of those missiles might have gotten through and or killed Israelis.
Right, fair enough. Let me go to Cenk. Cenk, it's very complex situation, this. In fact, the whole regional issues are very complex. And we have, of course, at the same time...
The situation is very complex. If I hear that one more time, I swear to God.
...the situation in Gaza. But Cenk, when you see what Iran did to Israel...
One day, I'm going to talk so much shit about Piers, he's going to find me, and he's going to be like, say it to my face. And that's going to be the end of my career, honestly.
What do you think Israel's response should be?
Their response should be nothing. They should leave well enough alone. Joe Biden, with a rare victory here in being right about the situation, de-escalate right now. Israel obviously started this. And by that, I don't mean we can get into, oh my God, their proxies and the Hamas, but then the occupation, and we can go all the way back to 1948. What I mean specifically is they attack Iran basically on its home soil by attacking the consulate, killing their top general, etc. It was an act of provocation. It was meant to get Iran to retaliate. Netanyahu has been dying for a war with Iran for about 2 decades now. He definitely started this. It left Iran absolutely no choice but to respond, and they responded in a way that...
Also, I just want to point out that this debate panel is not fair. You have Piers, which is a Zionist sympathizer, but tries to act like he's all sides. Then you have this Joe geriatric Walsh dude that used to be a congressman. I don't even know who the fuck he is. I guess he was significant enough to come on here. And then this Emily girl who's basically an Israeli government proxy. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think this debate panel was set up fairly, to be completely honest. But I mean, it's Piers. What do you expect?
Basically showed their hand, which was, we don't want a war. They gave 72-hour notice. It took the drones several hours to get there. If Iran wanted to do damage inside Israel, it would not have done this type of attack at all. This was Iran basically saying, look, we have to appease our domestic audience here and tell them, oh, we were tough and struck Israel back. But they knew they were going to get no casualties. So we had a tit for tat. We should leave it alone right now. If Israel goes back and hits Iran again, then there's going to be no end to this. Then Iran is going to have to respond, and this time it's going to be real. And people are going to die in Israel. It's a terrible, disastrous idea. They should definitely stop right now.
Okay, Emily Schrader, I can see you, well, I would say not entirely agreeing with what you just heard.
Yes, I strongly disagree, as you can imagine. I think the entire premise of asking Israel to exercise restraint rather than deterrence is a fundamental part of the problem here. I mean, as the Crown Prince mentioned, the Islamic Republic has been doing this for many, many years. It's a fundamental premise of the regime since 1979. They have been sworn to Israel's destruction. They have been sworn to America.
Okay, if Iran has been doing this for decades, when was the last time they struck Israel directly? Because if I remember, y'all were the ones that struck them directly. I'm a little confused, babes.
America's destruction. This is a fundamental value of the Islamic Republic. And not only that, but I find it very interesting what Cenk is saying right now, because the majority of the Iranian people, both inside and outside of Iran, disagree with him. In fact, there are thousands and thousands of Iranians who wish that Israel will assist the people of Iran in bringing down this regime. We are not going to see a better future in the Middle East for the Arab Muslims, for the...
I don't really know why she's speaking for Iranians. I don't think that's right. I would never go up and say majority of Palestinian people want X, Y, and Z, and they want this government to help them. Like, I don't know what the Palestinians want long term, and who am I to say? You know what I mean? I don't know why she felt like she had the authority to speak on all Iranian people. Iranian people aren't a monolith. The Iranian community is divided. It's 50-50. Some people believe in that, some people don't.
Iranians or for the Israelis in the Middle East until there is regime change in Iran. And to say that Israel started this is preposterous. It's not Israel that has a countdown to the destruction of Israel in the center of their largest city. That's Iran. They have taken money from the people of Iran and poured hundreds of millions of dollars into terrorist proxy organizations on the borders of Israel in order to ultimately destruct and destroy the state of Israel. I also want to add one more thing about the consulate that's important to note, that it was not, in fact, a consulate. It was an annex of the consulate. And even if it was a consulate under international law, it is permissible to strike when it's being used as a military headquarters to plan and conduct terrorist operations. Israel is in a state of war. We're in a state of war with the proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Hamas, and that is what that commander who was killed in that strike was doing there. So this is a legitimate target, even though Israel hasn't officially claimed responsibility.
Okay, I'm going to bring Joe in.
Okay, we all know you did it. We all know Israel did it, so let's just put that out of the way, even though she threw a little sprinkle of doubt in there. No, it was Israel that did it. Thank you very much. Also, you don't just randomly hit an embassy, because even if it's an annex of the embassy, it's still the embassy, and there's still regular civilians that go into the embassy for a variety of issues, okay? You cannot indiscriminately hit a embassy, okay? If someone would have indiscriminately hit the embassy of Israel in America, Israel would say the same thing. It's just how it goes. You do not indiscriminately hit a building of an embassy or the annex of the building of an embassy, period.
In a moment, I just want to get, Cenk, you were laughing at one stage there. What were you laughing at?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of absurd things were said there, like any mention of the Crown Prince. I mean, the guy's the son of a former dictator of Iran. He has zero credibility with the Iranian people. Look, the Iranian regime is...
That's absolutely
a
false.
disaster.
He is the most he is the most popular figure of any Iranians. Are you Iranian? Ask the Iranians yourself. It's very, very clear.
Oh, please,
While there are some people who don't support him, the vast majority of them do support the Shah.
Is she just going to talk over me? Because we can...
Why is she like, are you Iranian? But then she's like, are you Iranian? And then she speaks for all Iranian people, which is so funny to me. It's like, babes, you're not Iranian either. Please shut the fuck up.
Keep doing this all day long. Let me answer the question. So, first of all, the idea that they want their dictator back is hilarious. Second of all, but the thing that I laughed out loud at is she's like, oh, the Iranian people want Israel to bomb them. Do they? Do they? That's the most preposterous thing I have ever heard in my life.
I said the Iranian people want... It's actually not. There are multiple polls that show that. I personally think it's crazy.
Multiple polls that show that they want to be bombed by Israel?
There have been that they support Israeli strikes. That they support Israeli strikes on regime, IRGC, and regime sites exclusively. On IRGC sites. Yes, the majority of the Iranian people support regime change. The majority of the Iranian people support regime.
The majority of Iranian people supporting regime change is not equivalent to Iranian people want the IDF to bomb the shit out of them. Like, I don't really understand. It doesn't take Albert Einstein to understand that those two things do not equate to each other.
Regime change. I find it disgraceful that you are laughing at the suffering of 80 million people who live under an Islamist dictatorship.
No.
There are women who
Yeah,
are being
Piers, let me
dragged away
clarify.
by the morality police. As the Crown Prince mentioned, there is a second front of this war, and it is against
All right,
the
well,
Iranian people internally. Is that funny to you?
Let me
Is she
get
just gonna-
Is it
Cenk.
funny to
Is
you
she
that
just
women are
going to
being
talk
kidnapped by the
90%
regime?
of the time?
Sorry, why does Emily care so much about the morality police kidnapping women? Which, by the way, I've been arrested by the morality police. Like, what she's saying isn't necessarily untrue, but she's still worried about Iranian women. But then if you bring up the same exact argument for Israel, hey, the UN has credible reports that the Israeli soldiers are raping and sexually assaulting Palestinian women who are innocently kept in your jails. Then the whole entire rhetoric changes. Oh no, well, Hamas, human shields, you know what I mean? So it's very interesting because she cares about people and humanity when it benefits her personal agenda. And that is, my friends, the worst type of person you can be in politics. Because not only do you not have humanity for people, you only have humanity for them when they go under your criteria of people who deserve humanity. And that's really fucking fucked up, okay? That's wild. You're not in it for the right reasons. You're a government shill.
Is she just going to talk 90%
Jake,
of
why
the
don't
time?
you
I can do
respond
that
to
too.
that?
All right.
Is that funny to
Let
you?
me just respond real quick.
Do you find it funny
Okay,
that women,
so
that
listen,
Iranians are being oppressed
Can
on
I
a daily
respond?
basis
All
by
right,
this
whatever.
regime?
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay,
You
Cenk,
can talk
your
all day
response.
long. We're not going to. All right. All right. So, listen, the Iranian regime is terrible. I don't want Muslim fundamentalists in charge of Iran, and the people of Iran don't want Muslim fundamentalists in charge of Iran. So saying that they're against the regime is obvious. That's not the point. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If you said, hey, there's an internal revolution, and they're disgusted by the way that the Iranian regime is treating women or its own citizens and not giving them freedom, I totally agree. But if you claim that they want Israel to bomb Iran in order to effectuate regime change, you sound, it's not even, you don't even sound like a lunatic. You sound like you're a comic or something. You're trying to make a joke. That's
Well,
why
first
I'm
of all,
laughing.
it's not
No,
me
the
saying
Iranian
it.
people
First of all,
do
it's not
not
me
want
saying
to
it.
be
All right, let me bring in
bombed
Joe.
by
Let me bring in
Israel.
Joe.
But furthermore,
All right, let me bring in Joe. Joe's been waiting very patiently. Joe, here's my question for you about this.
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist by nature, but let me just put an idea out there about what may be really going on here. It doesn't seem to me to be a coincidence that October the 7th happened when it did, or that Iran chooses this moment to attack Israel directly, and that it may all be linked to the Abraham Accords, to the normalization of relations between Israel and many of the Middle Eastern countries, to the fact that Saudi Arabia was on the verge of joining that normalization of relations with Israel, and that for Iran, this is the ultimate nightmare, and that through their proxy tentacle.
Or maybe, just maybe, the Palestinian people were sick and tired of living under constant besiegement and getting treated like animals. I don't know. Maybe that's just a fucking thought, Piers. Why is it so hard for people to just admit that groups of people do not want to live oppressed for the rest of their lives? Why is that so? Like, why do you have to throw out this fucking conspiracy theory? Come on, as a moderator, as a self-proclaimed moderator, you need to do way better at moderating than asking conspiratorial questions, because now you're gonna get these two motherfuckers to speculate, one of which is a psychotic government shill and the other one was probably paid by AIPAC his whole life.
In Gaza and Hamas, they facilitated what happened on October the 7th to cause and maybe deliberately provoke Israel into what they would see as an overreaction, which would then lose global support. And it may be that what they've done with this missile strike directly into Israel is part of the same process, deliberately goading Israel into potentially overreacting, which may ultimately play into Iran's hands.
Pierce, I think you are spot on, my friend. Look, it's silly to engage in who started this first. Let's not do that. We all three of us agree that Iran's ruling regime is an evil regime. The Iranian people deserve to live in freedom. Pierce, you're exactly right. Look, the answer is the only way we get to peace in this region is when Israel can partner with the moderate Arab countries and isolate Iran, isolate Iran's proxies and all the other Islamists, not Muslims, Islamists who want to destroy Israel. Pierce, which is why I agree with Cenk on what Israel should do. to what happened over the weekend. Do nothing. Ignore Iran. Finish the job in Gaza. Work with the moderate Arab world to rebuild Gaza, and completely ignore Iran. Isolate Iran. That's the only way we're going to get to peace.
Emily, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you not see the danger?
Why the fuck do the Arab countries have to help Gaza when Israel is the one that is America's fucking sugar baby? Why do the Arab countries have to jump in? Is it because you believe all Arabs and Muslims are the same? Is it because you believe that we have some sort of a responsibility to clean up your fucking mess? Because we don't. When the two Zionists on your panel are agreeing with you, you're not a fucking centrist, you're a Zionist. It's not that hard, Piers.
Danger, Emily, that if Israel does now launch a massive counterstrike into Iran, that it could actually be doing exactly what Iran wants it to do.
Of course, that's a distinct possibility. I think there are a lot of options on the table when it comes to any kind of response. I know there's already been some discussion this morning about a cyber attack. There are a number of different options that have been put forward to the cabinet, and it remains to be seen what they will do about it. I don't know if a military option is the best option for a regime change in Iran. I've advocated for many years now that I think that the Western governments have an obligation and a duty to assist the people of Iran. What the Crown Prince was mentioning about maximum support is incredibly important. The people of Iran want this regime to fall, and I do believe that there is a way to do it peacefully, but it does require a lot of effort on the part of the West, and it does require enforcement of sanctions, not just putting on the books, enforcement of sanctions, adding additional sanctions, choking this regime out until they fall, and also empowering the people. We had multiple uprisings that have been quashed violently by the Islamic Republic. The people are ready. We need to support them, and we haven't seen that from the Western world. We haven't seen that from Europe with their failure to designate the IRGC. We haven't seen that with the enforcement of sanctions.
Do you understand how many fucking innocent women died during the Women Life Freedom Movement simply for not putting on their scarf on their head? And you're telling me there's a peaceful way to get rid of them? What fucking delusional la la land do you live in? I just want to know, Emily, because as a person that's actually lived there and was literally arrested by the same morality police that you think you know so much about, there's no way that you can get rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran without a shit ton of bloodshed. You don't know anything. If you try to convince me that, oh, you can just get rid of Iran with real sanctions and just support the people, make it cute. Tell me you don't know anything without telling me you don't know anything. Also, side fucking note, why do we have 3 non-Iranians on a panel speaking about Iran as if they know the Iranian people, they know the government, or they lived in Iran? You don't have a single person representing Iran on this panel, and they're all speaking for Iranian people. I don't get it. You want to be a part of the solution, but you end up being a greater part of the problem because now you got this Emily girl speaking for all Iranian people, which is wild because I don't agree with a goddamn word this woman says other than the fact that the Islamic regime is bad and we need to get rid of them. Okay, fine. I don't think anyone wants Islamic fundamentalism in their governments. I think we can all agree with that. Outside of that, you suck. And you should not be the person that's speaking for us. Period.
I haven't seen that with a very, very weak Iran policy from the Biden administration. That is something that allows this regime to continue, not to mention, of course, releasing billions of dollars in assets that is then going to terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East that disproportionately harm and kill Arab Muslims in the region. So really, Israel and the Arab world are on the same page, as you mentioned about the...
Oh, yeah. Iran is killing innocent Arabs. Right. Who is the group of people that killed 33,000 Arabs in less than a year? Who's the group of people that wounded more than 70,000 Arabs? It wasn't Iran. I can tell you that confidently.
Abraham Accords, this is a major threat to the Islamic Republic. This is what they're seeking to destroy. They are an anti-peace entity. And so I think that the democratic Western world needs to push back against that, and they need to empower the people of Iran, increase the pressure on the regime, increase support for the people, and see if that can get us to where we need to go with this regime falling.
Okay, Cenk, I mean, I was struck by the fact that immediately racing to the defense of Israel when these missiles were fired were the British, but also Jordan, Saudi Arabia. You know, it was fascinating to watch the geopolitics play out here. How significant do you think that was?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there. First of all, when the UK and the US help Israel knock down the drones and the missiles, I'm totally in favor of that. As you know, Piers, I've been consistent on this from day one. I don't want any civilians dying in Israel, in Gaza, in Iran. That's what I care about the most. And so we want to avoid war. Saudi Arabia has always hated Iran. That's not surprising. Look, Israel actually could unite a lot of the Arab countries, moderate or otherwise. Saudi Arabia, of course, is not moderate. They're also fundamentalist Muslims. They're also dictators, etc. But you could rally all those folks as long as you end the occupation. But if you're going to continue the occupation for another 75 years, 75 days, et cetera, you're never going to rally any of those Arab countries. Yeah, you might get a deal with a dictator or two because they have economic interests on your side, but you're not ever going to get the people on your side. And by the way, in this conversation, we're actually finally getting to somewhere productive. Look, there's plenty of disagreement I have with Emily on the money and the sanctions, et cetera. But overall, think about it, guys. If you bomb Iran, do you think that makes regime change more likely or less likely? Obviously, it makes it less likely because it allows the regime to rally the Iranian people.
It depends on what kind of strike.
Can I just finish?
It depends on what kind. If you're targeting an IRGC site, if you're targeting a nuclear site, you can't make a blanket statement like that. That's massively overbroad.
Yeah, what's gonna happen if you hit a nuclear site? Come on, dipshit, tell me. I don't know. Innocent people that live around the nuclear site die? But I don't I really don't get it. I don't. If anyone has two working brain cells, they listen to Emily and they want to pull their hair out of their scalp.
There is a strategic military option.
There is no people on Earth. There are no people on Earth that say, oh, it's okay to bomb our country as long as you bomb military or nuclear facilities or anything like that. No, of course, they're going to think Israel bombed us. You have to bomb them back.
85%
and it's going to rally.
You know what's crazy? So my family is in Shiraz and my aunt lives right by the military base where they sent the ballistic missiles from. So she said she was chilling on her couch and she legitimately thought she got bombed because the launch of the missiles were so loud, and she said that she started crying and she was scared for her life. She was like, it's over, like, we got bombed. She was so fucking scared. Mind you, my aunt isn't a pro-regime. She also doesn't want to die. And this is the problem. This is the problem with Western media, right? You bring on a bunch of people that don't have family, don't know anyone. You're bringing on a bunch of people that have nothing to do with anything in Iran, and they're all fragrantly speaking for all Iranian people. My aunt, who literally lives right by that military base that shot out the ballistic missiles, was scared for her life. Scared for her life. And you're telling me, oh, if we just hit the strategic spots of where the military bases are, if you hit the military base that hit those ballistic missiles in Shiraz, you would kill my aunt. Like that. It wouldn't even be a question. And this is a part of the reason why I refuse to join debate panels whenever I get invited, because I feel like the humanity of people is reduced into a political point. And I think that's exactly what Emily has been doing her whole entire career as this Israeli journalist. You're reducing people's lives, civilians' lives, to make your political point, and I think that's sick. Like, I don't think anyone on any side should be able to do that.
Them around the regime. I can't understand why you can't see that. It's so, look, guys,
it's not
I don't
me
know.
Saying it's thousands of Iranians.
It's not.
Let me bring in Joe. Let me bring in Joe. He's been waiting patiently.
Let's clarify. Okay, so Emily says bombing Iran is going to get the Iranian people on Israel's side. I say no. What do you
Well, no, to be fair, no. Wait a minute. To be fair, what she said was, it depends what targets Israel targeted in that eventuality.
No, it does not depend.
If it was purely military targets, nuclear targets, and so on. Has she not got a point, though, Cenk?
Where the Iranian... Piers, are you saying that the Iranian people would be like, oh, you targeted us, but in the best possible intentions? We're so happy Israel bombed us
what I'm saying,
our military facilities.
What I'm saying is, I think Emily has a point. There would clearly be a different response, I would imagine, from a lot of Iranian people if the civilians, were not targeted. I mean, there's a qualitative difference between military targets and civilian targets, isn't there?
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna placate stupid Piers. Okay, let's say Israel is a great country that believes in the morality and the livelihood of the civilians it doesn't like, okay? Let's just assume that Israel is that kind of a country. Let's say they hit the military sites. Then what's gonna happen? Genius. Then Iran is gonna have to retaliate back because they have to show that they're not weak and they can't just allow missiles to come into their country. Rightfully so. They have a right to defend themselves. Then what happens? Then Israel hits back. And then you know what it's gonna lead to, genius? It's gonna lead to World War III, whether you like the Islamic Republic or not. So, babe, you're playing a really bad game of chess, and it's not you that's gonna lose. It's not the governments that's gonna lose. It's gonna be the civilians. And I know you're a warmongering freak, but at the end of the day, you have to look at what is the conclusion going to be. The conclusion is going to be so many tit for tats that people by the thousands are going to die. We don't want that. It's that simple.
Barely. Because look, it's all about rhetoric. You think the Iranian regime is going to tell their local population, hey guys, don't sweat it. It was just a military site. No, they're going to rile people up. I think it's deeply counterproductive. It helps the mullahs. It helps the Grand Ayatollah. If you bomb Iran in any way, shape, or form, do you think that if America was bombed, we'd be like, oh no, it's okay, they hit a military target, so we're now in favor of the country who bombed us. There's a 0% chance of that.
All right, let me bring in Joe now. Let me bring in Joe. We must let Joe have a say. Joe.
No, and I'll be brief, Piers. Thanks. I just think what happened this weekend, and I say this as someone who is off the charts pro-Israel, what happened this weekend presents an opportunity for Israel. And I think turning the other cheek right now and ignoring Iran right now is a huge signal of strength. I really do. There are people around the world who hate Israel who are just waiting for Israel to bomb and attack Iran. Don't.
True. The AIPAC sleuth has a point.
Give them that. Isolate Iran, ignore them, and focus on what you need to focus on, Israel.
Okay, Emily.
The problem here is that if Israel doesn't respond, if Israel doesn't respond in some capacity, maybe it's a cyber attack, maybe it's some other method that we haven't thought of yet, I don't know. But if Israel does nothing, this also is not the right response because doing nothing emboldens the regime. We need to deter the regime, not just Israel, but the entire Western world. This is a disgusting Islamist human rights violating regime that is persecuting its own people.
Yeah, but
no one is denying the fact that Iran's government is trash. I lived there. I agree with you. I was personally arrested by a morality police. I get it. I hate them too. But at the same time, you can't just say, hoorah, let's bomb Iran. Because I'm telling you right now, if Iran gets bombed back, they're gonna start doing shit back. And this time they're not gonna be fucking around. You're just gonna be at the end of finding out. It's not gonna be fuck around and find out. It's gonna be, oh, you fucked around? Now you're gonna randomly find out and you're not even gonna know what hit you. Which, by the way, Iran gave ample notice. Iran let them know that it was coming. Iran sent their missiles from Iran, so the missiles had a couple of hours to get to Israel. Israel has the Iron Dome. Not only that, Jordan, Britain, France all sent their jets, America, to start deterring these bombs. So even the Iron Dome wouldn't have been able to take every bomb out. So you're telling me that if Iran does a random attack, does not warn y'all, uses all their proxies to do it, it's quick, all you hear is sirens and that's it, you're telling me that Israel's going to be able to defend itself the same way. I'm telling you right now, Britain, France, America, Jordan, they're not going to pause everything every single day to protect Israel, okay? No one has the money for it. No one has the time. Also, not to mention the whole entire economy of the Middle Eastern airspace was kaput on Saturday because of all the freaking bombs going over. Like, there were literally no airplanes in the air on Saturday. So you're telling me that the general economy, the world can just like continue to rotate when the whole entire Middle East is just like ballistic bombs going back and forth? Come on. You're not debating in good faith. You're debating to just warmonger.
Emily, isn't it also the case, Emily?
Maybe it can be done through sanctions.
But you talk about, okay, Emily, let me challenge you.
But that's not up to Israel alone.
Okay, Emily, here's my question for you. Is it not a deterrence that Iran fires off all these missiles, including ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and so on, and none of them landed? I mean, barely nothing worked. It was all neutralized by not just Israel's Iron Dome, but also by its other countries and their defenses in the region. But it was a complete failure operationally. Now, it may well be that Iran intended it not to be that successful, hence the warnings that they gave to the Americans, to the Saudis, and so on. It may be it was all performative in that sense. But the reality is, Israel's defenses, unlike on October the 7th, they stood up magnificently well. Is that not in itself a pretty unnerving deterrent to enemies who want to try and do this thing? Is that you can try.
If you would have given me 24 to 48 hours to defend myself and I had a sugar daddy like America, I would be fine too. As if every single attack is going to be that way.
But you won't succeed.
Well, I think there's no question it was a spectacular failure on the part of the Islamic Republic, with 99% of their projectiles being shot down by a coalition of countries. However, when it comes to deterrence, the Islamic Republic knows full well that they can fire 10 times the amount as they themselves have promised to do and overwhelm the missile defense system. So that isn't really an accurate response. And I also want to add that what the Islamic regime did in this instance by launching this, by escalating the conflict, is actually a sign of weakness of the regime itself. I mean, they have rallied around bashing Israel as a tool to, try to get people to their side and to show that they are under attack for many, many years. This is a tactic that they did even with the Iran-Iraq war. They were wildly unpopular, and so they started a war. That being said, you can see that in the timidness of their strike and the fact that Hezbollah, which is an arm of the Islamic Republic in Lebanon, didn't go full out on Israel, although they also fired rockets, that they are not prepared. And that could be for a number of different reasons. But I don't think that they're looking for a full-out war with Israel right now. Despite that, they did escalate the situation. And I think that Israel has an obligation to deter them and to respond strongly and ensure that this type of thing does not occur again. I'm sorry.
All right. I'll come to Cenk in a moment, but Joe, you don't agree with that?
No, Emily, look, I agree that Iran is vastly weakened after this weekend. But man, you bomb them, you go after that regime militarily, you will do nothing but embolden them. They are weakened. So keep them on this path. Show your strength. Look at them and look the other way and do what you need to do. They're weak. Continue to isolate them.
This only works. This only works if you have the coalition of other countries, if you have the West involved, if you have countries that are willing to enforce sanctions, that are willing to designate the IRGC. No, they don't. It's been years, and Europe has refused to designate the IRGC. They're not enforcing sanctions. The Biden administration is weaker than ever. They're releasing billions in frozen assets over and over and over again. Appeasement doesn't work. Every time we appease this regime, executions go up, nuclear proliferation goes up, funding for terrorism goes up.
Let me bring in Cenk. Let me bring in Cenk here. Cenk, you're shaking your head there. Do you not agree with the principle? The Crown Prince said the same thing, that appeasing Iran in any way has turned out to be a completely pointless exercise.
Yeah, that's 100% wrong. We had Iran completely contained under Obama. We did a great deal. We took the uranium out of the country. They had no nuclear program. Then that idiot Trump came along, egged on by the idiot Netanyahu, and said, oh, let's get out of the deal so they can start doing uranium enrichment again. That was such a terrible idea. And now Iran is more emboldened and more dangerous because of that right-wing mentality of always go maximalist. You think like that people don't know that Israel will try to obliterate Iran if they have a war? Everybody knows that, okay? Everybody knows that Israel has nukes. Everyone knows that Netanyahu is a warmonger and will do vicious things. It's not like
I mean, listen, I'm not an Obama fan, although he is my favorite war criminal, but he did do a couple of things that were great. He did create Obamacare. I currently have insurance under Obamacare. Wouldn't have been able to be insured as a content creator if it wasn't for that, as well as the nuclear deal with Iran. He fucked a lot of other things up. I'll agree with you. I don't like him in general, but he did do a couple of things here and there that were very beneficial. So I'm just saying, love the guy, hate the guy, credit where credit is due.
Can't see Gaza. No, but you're not going to help the people of Israel, let alone America, which I want to come back to, if you start this giant war in the Middle East. Here's what the people, the government of Israel, I don't think understands at this point. They're in great danger of losing the American people for the first time in my life. The left wing can't stand what they've done in Gaza, but I got news for you. A ton of the right wing can't stand it either. And here's what we're all unified about. We don't want to go into another disastrous war in the Middle East. MAGA doesn't want that. Progressives don't want that. The only people who want that.
Coming to you.
No, it's not. Israel wants the war. America doesn't want the war.
Has promised from day one. That is what the Islamic Republic, the little Satan is Israel and the big Satan is the United States. This is their ideology.
I'm not going to let you keep talking over me.
They are not motivated by reason. They're motivated by extremism.
You
are missing the point.
We can talk over each other all day long.
You can keep saying no, it doesn't change the reality.
Okay, here's the reality. America doesn't want to go to war. If any government official, whether it's Biden or Trump, if anybody brings us to war, they will pay a massive political price. And by the way, so will Israel. If Israel drags us into this war, I guarantee you they lose American support. Whether you like it or you don't, and the polling indicates this,
You know what? I gotta give it to Cenk. I think Cenk made a great point that I wouldn't even been able to remember to make if I were on this panel. American politicians on both sides of the spectrum are teetering amongst losing all Americans because no one is going to back a war. We don't care how just the war is. Most people don't even back us funding Ukraine anymore on both sides of the spectrum. Funding wars on any side of the spectrum is just a very unpopular take now. It's not a very popular take, and as the younger generation grows older, turns into voters, etc., that popularity is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. I would personally be very surprised if Joe Biden gets elected again because many people, we just don't want war. So he made a great point here.
This close to losing the entire right wing, let alone the entire left wing. We're sick of Palestinians being murdered with our money. And now you want to start a giant war in the Middle East and have us fight for it? Here's how many troops should go into a war in the Middle East. Zero. America doesn't need to fight this war.
You're arguing about politics and popularity. That's not the issue here.
If Israel wants to start a war with Iran, good luck to you, okay? America should have nothing to do with it. Nothing. I'm sick of Israel starting hostilities, killing Muslim people, and then saying, America pay for it. America fight for it. Zero kids should go and $0 should go.
If the goal, and I think all three of us can agree to this, if the goal is to defeat Iran's ruling regime, you have to be smart. And if you respond militarily right now in a big way against this regime, that will not defeat them. Emily, I'm with you on your end game, but we have to be smart. And it would be terribly short-sighted right now if Israel responded in kind. We're on a path where we can isolate Iran.
I don't think Israel's considering even responding in kind.
Any sort of military response would backfire on Israel right now.
That's right.
Emily?
And you don't want to do it to Israel.
I don't agree with that. I fundamentally don't agree with that, but I actually want to address something else, which is that you're saying America doesn't want a war. I agree with you. What you're arguing about here is a popularity contest. You're arguing about elections. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the future and the safety of the United States. I'm talking about the future and the safety of the Western world and the future and the safety of the state of Israel. And the reality is that we're dealing with a regime that is not logical. They are concerned by extremist ideology that they're trying to promote all around the world. It is not logical. That is why appeasement hasn't worked. And it's not going to work. And we've been trying to do this for 45 years now, and it hasn't worked. So try something different. We need to have a smarter, a better approach in order to bring down this regime. And you saying, oh, we shouldn't do X because of popularity, that's not the question. America and the West and Israel need to do what they need to do in order to protect themselves, even if sometimes it's unpopular. Now, are we at that point today with Iran? I don't know. That's not a decision that I'm making. But for you to say, oh, because of popularity, it doesn't matter, because of elections, the people of Iran who are suffering under this regime for 45 years, the people who are sitting in Evin prison because they went to a protest a year ago, that doesn't matter?
I just want to say, it does not matter who gets elected. The people who are in Evin prison are going to stay in Evin prison. I don't really understand her argument here. Like, is her argument that we need to bomb people? We need to bomb the state of Iran to free people in Evin prison? I don't get it. I don't understand the logic here.
Shame on you.
You want to lose American elections and then lose all money to Israel? Go have at it, Hoss. But that's not going to help Israel at all, okay? So stop going in a counterproductive direction. All of this warmongering is totally counterproductive. It hurts Israeli citizens. Obviously, Iranian civilians would be hurt. But America, I don't understand how Israel's our ally. All they ever do is drag us into wars, drag us into conflicts. The idea of America is not safe unless we attack Iran
Israel
is
on the front
insanity.
lines of the war that will come to the United States.
The front lines of a war they started.
Yeah, see, this whole logic that the war is going to come to America if you don't support us because Israel is surrounded by a bunch of Muslim Arabs that just want to bomb and kill everyone. Yeah, babes, that worked in 2000. That worked in 2001. It doesn't work now. It's an archaic argument that was fabricated by the Pentagon. They call it the War on Terror. Yeah, you can Google it. That's literally where your logic stems from. And also, if you are really surrounded by a bunch of warmongering Islamist Arabs, why are you forcing yourself on that land? If you're really surrounded by all these Arabs that just want to kill you, that you can just leave. I don't understand. Like, what? You're forcing yourself on that land, and then you want to cry and complain that Iran is right by you. That move then. Go back to Poland or wherever the fuck you came from.
Front lines of a war they started.
No.
I don't see how this has anything to do with American interests.
Have you not heard? Have you not heard the Ayatollah speak about the United States?
Yeah, I know what they say, and you say that they're not rational. That's actually not true. If they were irrational and they were religious zealots and all that, so they're actually greedy and corrupt. That's the thing that drives them. And they want to keep their lives and they want to keep their money. And so that's why they gave us 72-hour notice before they attacked.
And they want to export
if they were irrational
their
zealots,
Islamist
they would have
extremism all over the world, as they have stated and as they are doing.
I can't go on with people.
You want to know what justified the war against Afghanistan was the same exact rhetoric. They were like, you know what? The Taliban, they're going to export their extremist Taliban views on Americans. 20 years later, the Taliban went right back where they were 20 years ago. Now they're the governing entity of Afghanistan, have ran Afghanistan to complete shit. And how many people in America do you know that follow Taliban fundamentalist beliefs? I personally don't know anyone. If y'all do, you should probably let the FBI know. I'm just saying, it's war on terror bullshit, anti-Arab Islamophobic rhetoric. Same shit, different timeline. I don't know how else to explain it.
People that constantly talk over me. All right, if they were zealots, they would have done what Netanyahu did. Attack blindly and with rage and just kill everything in sight. You want to talk about zealots? Look at the Israeli settlers. The fundamentalists of Muslims, Jews, and Christians in this world
that shot
are getting
down a
all
plane
of us
of their
killed.
own citizens. What are you talking about?
Yeah, by accident, because they're clowns.
What are you talking about? Do you know nothing about Iran? Do you know nothing about how the Islamic Republic works? You seem to think that the Iranian people are perfectly fine with their regime.
Emily,
let me give the last word to Joe.
Yeah, and Emily, let me slap Cenk with this one, because you and I are on the same side of this one. Israel, I tweeted this over the weekend, Cenk, and I believe it. An attack on Israel is an attack on America. Plain and simple. Israel is
no, it's not.
Cenk, hold on. Let me finish, my brother. Israel is our best friend on this planet. They are our closest ally. If Israel was hit by any country in that region, like over the weekend, America would be there to defend it, to defend Israel, because they are our best friend. And Cenk, America.
First of all, if you're a white man, do not call a person who is not white your brother. It's microaggressive, it's weird, it's racist. He's not your brother. You're saying it in a condescending way. Just stop. Number 2, a war on Israel is not my war. My tax money shouldn't go to it. I don't really give a fuck. I do give a fuck if other countries get bombed. Do I personally want to get invested in it with my money? No. I think we should fund our veterans in America. I think we should fund school lunches for children. I think we should fund healthcare and accessible healthcare towards all the people that are living with disabilities and or have disabilities. Colon cancer is on the rise in America, as well as other respiratory cancers. I would love for people to be able to get screening and have the healthcare needed to be able to afford to get that screening. I would be more than happy for my tax money to fund all of those things. The Iron Dome just cost $1 billion in one day. I'm sorry, respectfully, that's not my fucking problem. Y'all started it. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. What the fuck do you want me to do about it?
America will always be pro-Israel, period.
No, it won't.
But
the
we have to
indicates
fight
it's
this
not
fight
pro-Israel
smartly.
right now. Okay.
Oh, yes, we
I don't know why.
I mean,
like,
I would say on that.
Why?
Go ahead, Piers.
I do think Cenk has made one. Cenk made a powerful point earlier, which is true, which is the polling has never been as negative as this towards Israel in America in modern times. So there is no doubt that there is certainly amongst younger people in America, there is a growing sense of unease about this special relationship. And that is undeniable from the polls. So anyway, we've got to leave it there. A fascinating debate. Thank you all very much indeed. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Piers.
Let's go over my thoughts on this debate. This was the one debate that I actually got really mad at, and that's because I'm an Iranian woman who was born and raised in America but lived in Iran for a year when I was 13. So I, number one, did not like the fact that a bunch of people who were not Iranian were debating about what Iranian people want and don't want. Number two, I don't know why the prince is a speaking person that creates a whole entire monolith of Iranian people. I don't think that's true. I don't think Iranian people are all a monolith. Do I think Prince William speaks for all British people? No. So I'm not sure why Western media treats him as the spokesperson for all Iranian people. Maybe they're lazy. Maybe he has a good PR team. I don't know. But it's a problem. It's a growing problem. And number three, is not fair when you have a centrist as the debate moderator. You have someone like Cenk who is pro-Palestine, and then you have two people who are vehemently pro-Israel. It's not a fair debate. You're not setting up the playing field fairly, and at the same time, you're just letting Emily speak over everyone and yell her point, which makes it even more insufferable. But you continue to bring her on because she brings the drama, she brings the crazy, insane, talking points, and she's good for ratings. I get it. I understand the logic that Piers' producers probably have behind bringing her on his show, but at the end of the day, it was incredibly insufferable as a viewer to watch. Now, with that being said, I just really hope that Piers learns, and next time he wants to have a debate about Iran, he actually brings on a political scientist that is Iranian that can give you a well-tapered response to every question that you have. Not taking one or the other side, but giving you a deep political analysis of all of the different nuances that the Iranian community may hold or may not hold. This debate heavily lacked that. We had a psycho-Israeli telling us what Iranian people want. Not a good look. With that being said, thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.